Visit our sponsor, Bonner & Partners, right now at cashcutoff.com. That's cashcutoff.com. Bill Bonner's research network predicted the fall of the Soviet Union, the rise of Muslim terrorism, the Japanese crash, and the financial meltdown of 2008. Now his firm Bonner & Partners has published a more dire warning. What happens in the event your ATM doesn't work, your credit card is denied? What if you can't sell your investments? Although this might sound implausible to some, it's a very real possibility. A run on cash. Think about it. How do you pay for goods and services if credit doesn't work? Who among you, your friends and family, actually have more than a few dollars in their pocket? Claim your full intelligence file right away. Get 4 research reports, plus the free book, Hormageddon, and a 12-month all-access pass to the Bill Bonner letter for just $49. It's risk-free for 60 days. Get the Great American Credit Collapse, the Crisis Money Guide, how to get your own homestead on the cheap, and much more. Click the link below right now to register at cashcutoff.com.
Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. I'm with one of our partners, Doug Casey of Casey Research. They sponsor a lot of our content. You guys are probably familiar with Bonner & Partners. Tell us what that relationship entails now. Did the companies merge, or how does that work?
I sold most of the company to a division of Agora, Stansberry Research. So,
Fantastic.
yes. I don't like running businesses. I just like doing what I do.
Okay, so what are you researching now? What is top of mind? What are you seeing? I know you travel around the world.
Yeah, I've been to 150 countries and lived in 10, and most recently I came back from Poland and Ukraine. And a couple of weeks before that I spent a week in Zimbabwe talking to government ministers, pursuing my hobby. But what do I see coming up in the world? We're right at the cusp of the Greater Depression.
That bad, you think?
Well, I think it's going to be much worse and much different than what happened in the 1930s. And view it as we're in a giant financial hurricane, and we entered the leading edge of the storm in 2007 through 2009. We've been in the eye of the storm now for some years, and we're going into the trailing edge, which is going to be much, much worse and much, much different than what we saw in 2008 and 2009, which you should recall were unpleasant years for a lot of people. So that's what you have to look forward to. Well, I'm not going to
Kind of depressing.
Well, not for me. I'm going to be watching it on my widescreen in Argentina, not out my front window here in the U.S.
So what do you think, is there a catalyst to this? I mean, what triggers it? The Federal Reserve has policy at 0% interest rates. It's been like this pretty much forever now. They barely bumped 25 basis points, which really isn't a bump. We've got negative interest rates across the pond in Europe. So do you see a potential catalyst for this unraveling? Because the S&P 500 just hit a new all-time high. I don't really believe personally that artificial reality, but a lot of people do. They don't see a storm coming. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I don't know exactly what's going to set it off because, the term black swan has become quite popular these days, and let me use it. I think there are black swans hovering like a flock of gigantic pteranodons, and I don't know which one is going to set down first, but perhaps it's the current crisis in banking in Italy. All the Italian banks are bankrupt for hundreds of billions of dollars, but almost all the banks all over the world are bankrupt for hundreds of billions of dollars. Why? Because since 2007, governments all over the world have been printing up trillions and trillions of currency units in an attempt to put off the inevitable. So that I don't know what's going to break the bubble, but the bubble is in search of a pin. And it's going to be quite catastrophic in a lot of ways because there's more debt in the world now than there was back in 2007. There are more bubbles in the world now than there were back then.
Yeah, bigger, arguably.
Bigger bubbles. So it's going to be a speculator's delight, but the bad thing about a depression, as Richard Russell liked to say, is that in a depression nobody wins. The winner is the person that loses the least. And I don't know what these governments are going to do because the people that are running the governments of the world and the central banks, it seems to me they're actually criminally insane. So who can tell?
What would you do, and these are complex, issues and questions, but what do you think the Federal Reserve could do to perhaps change the course, or is it even possible to change the course at this point?
I don't think it is possible to change the course because things have gone too far. If they stop creating money then the whole system will go into a deflationary collapse. Incidentally, deflation in itself is a natural and good thing, where the purchasing power of your money goes up every year due to productivity and so forth. But it's likely if they did that, we'd have a catastrophic credit collapse. The real wealth in the world would still exist, but its ownership would change radically. So there's nothing they can do at this point. It's just a question of who gets caught holding the bag.
Sure. So it's almost sounds like an inevitability. Our audience certainly agrees with that as well, because they just see more of the stimulus as an artificial bubble that's been created. So we hear the argument all the time: deflation versus inflation, and I hear good arguments on both sides from a lot of smart people on both sides. So you're more of the deflationary argument, or what?
There are this argument has been going on since, believe it or not, the 1960s, as to which it would be. And so far, it's been inflation. But that doesn't mean we can't have a credit collapse, deflation. Which is it going to be? Listen, we could have both at the same time. Inflation, where the price of rice and beans skyrockets, but the price of mega houses and McMansions collapses. Different parts of the economy. Or we could have them both in sequence. Much higher inflation, credit collapse, or credit collapse followed by. So it's a chaotic situation. I don't know, inflation or deflation. I only know it's going to be chaos.
What do you recommend the average Joe watching this do? Obviously, you've dedicated your life to studying these kinds of things. I mean, is there a way someone should position themselves, their investments? What do you do? I mean, because you can see it coming. How do you combat that situation?
Look, the thing is that all the markets of the world are in bubbles today. Bonds are in a super bubble. If you're a speculator, I'd look to go short bonds. Stocks are in a bubble. If you own any stocks, I'd probably get rid of them. Gold, it's not at bargain levels anymore, but I don't know where else you go. I think silver is an excellent speculative vehicle. I'm long most commodities personally.
Oil? Any ideas on oil? We've seen a little bit of a rebound after.
I'm not crazy about oil right now. The only thing that's going to take oil up is if there's a war in the Middle East. But other than oil's the one commodity I have no particular opinion on. The grains are very cheap, but the tropicals are very cheap. But I think these junior mining stocks, which are not an investment incidentally, because mining is a crappy business to start with, and most junior mines don't have any metal to start with. But I think that it's going to be a super bubble in those things before it's over. So I think that's an excellent speculative vehicle. What advice would I give people? I know what. I've got some good advice. I've just come out with my first novel, Speculator, which talks about the mining industry and mining frauds and theory of speculation, all centered around a war in Africa, an uprising war with mercenaries and child soldiers. So read Speculator. I think it's a good way to get an education.
And how can our audience find that? Is it on your website or Amazon? Or
This is pre-publication. It'll be on Amazon next week, but it's a very good read, I've got to tell you, and it's the first of a sextet of books where I attempt to reform 6 unjustly besmirched occupations, starting on a gradient with speculator and moving up to drug lord, assassin, terrorist, warlord, and finally we show that the Antichrist himself is a good guy. So it'll be entertaining, I think. But this is a practical book that suits our current economic environment. Speculator.
now you're currently full-time in Argentina, or is that?
I'd say that I'm between Argentina and Uruguay. I'm down there 8 months of the year.
Okay, is that a strategic location to be in the case of a depression? Why set up shop there? You said you got a front row seat to coming events.
I put a lot of money in Argentina. People thought I was crazy when I was putting money there a few years ago, because Argentina is well known as the country where money goes to die. But now they don't think I'm crazy anymore, because it was inevitable, fortunate, and I hoped inevitable, that with the new government down there, they're radically free marketizing. They've fired 100,000 government employees. They've gotten rid of all export duties. They're doing a lot of things. And Argentina is one of the few countries in the world that's going to boom in the next few years. We put a lot of money, I don't know, $30 million, to develop a resort and sporting estate in northwest Argentina. We've got a golf course and a polo field. I used to play polo. One of the fantastic Los Angeles class gym. Lots of houses are built, a five-star hotel. So if you want to come to Argentina and visit us, I think that's an excellent place to start.
Never been there. Like to visit and see the land.
Seventh largest country in the world, only 40 million people. They're all around LA, so it's open, empty. And so I spent a lot of time in Argentina too.
Now, as a self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist, are you following American politics? What is your opinion of Trump, for example?
Well, look, I don't support Donald Trump, but because he knows really nothing about economics, which is not what he believes, incidentally. But I hope he wins, because the alternative is Hillary, who's just a minion of the deep state and is much more warlike, believe it or not, than Trump is. And perhaps Trump will actually do some good. I'm fairly confident he's going to win, though, because by the time the November elections come around, the country's going to be in chaos. And since he's shown competence in the past, and since he exudes certainty, and at a time of chaos where nobody knows anything, the average person knows nothing, they're going to vote for him for those reasons. So good luck, but I'll be watching it from abroad.
Now, you said chaos. You think that's engineered chaos? For example, we see with race relations and the mainstream media focused on Black Lives Matter and the tragic deaths of two African American men. I mean, what is this? Is that a part of that chaos, do you think?
I think that sociologically the country's probably a time bomb now. It's probably moving into the same kind of atmosphere that we had in the 60s, which, there was tear gas all over and not hundreds, but thousands of bombs that were being set off. I mean, this is before your time, but it happened. So I think it's going to be like that. And it might be compounded this time, not just with a simple war, a sport war like we had in Vietnam, but maybe a serious war with Russia or China. So this is a very serious thing.
Do you think the U.S. is provoking that war? What's your take on that?
I'd say the U.S. government is the most dangerous entity in the world today. They're trying to demonize, all kinds of people, Putin and the Chinese. And, it's not that they're particularly nice people, but when it comes to the Ukraine and Syria and most things, the U.S. is the provocateur.
The aggressor.
I don't know, it's shameful. I mean, I don't even call this place America anymore, because America was an idea, and an excellent idea. This is just the United States. This is just another of 200 nation states that have covered the world like a skin disease.
So is it just corruption? I mean, how did we get here? How did it go from an idea that worked in a lot of regards? It wasn't perfect, but now we've got kind of a chaotic environment, a Great Depression you're telling us about. You think we're knocking on the door. Is it just corruption at the highest law of the land, and is it just so bad that it's festered into a disease? Or how did we get here, and then what do we do? Just watch the fallout?
Well, I blame it on the second law of thermodynamics. That law states that all systems eventually degrade. That's what entropy is all about. Without significant outside insertions of outside energy, all things fall apart and degrade, whether you're talking about a nation state or a building or a human body. So it's inevitable. The question is what's it going to look like after the current system collapses? Usually these things get worse. When the French Revolution happened, I would have been all for the overthrow of Louis XIV, for obvious reasons. But then it got worse with Robespierre, and then it got worse with Hitler. And in 1917 in Russia, I would have been all for the overthrow of the Tsar. Then it got worse with Lenin, and it got worse again with Stalin. So usually when you have chaos in a system, things get worse before they get better. So I'm not interested in spending time here while these people sort things out. But the current state of affairs, I feel, is unsustainable. economically, financially, sociologically. I don't know where it's going to end.
Any other bright spots, areas of opportunity? I mean, obviously we have tremendous challenges, but anything else you're looking at going, you know what, this is an opportunity? Because like you said, you're not going to wait around.
No.
You're going to take charge. I'm sure protect your assets, protect your well-being, livelihood, all those things. Any other bright spots that you see that kind of leave it on an optimistic note today?
Well, look, most of the real wealth in the world is still going to be here after this period of chaos eventually sorts itself out. So the only thing is its ownership is going to change. So hopefully the good guys will be among the people that take over ownership.
That win.
of it. So there's always a bright side to every story.
All right. Where can our audience find you again? Your website?
Well, you can go to kcresearch.com and look on Amazon for the book Speculator, which I think you're going to enjoy.
All right, Doug, well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television, hard-hitting and in your face.